Episode 108. I can't believe it's 108. That's pretty great. So Jenna and Stacy came by today. They're my guests. Jenna's a friend from the neighborhood. Stacy I just met today. What a great lady. They are part of an organization called momsdemandaction.org, and we talk about gun safety. I thought gun safety is a great conversation to have because I have kids. I grew up with guns. Not everybody grew up with guns. Safety when I was a kid is not the same as safety today. So I just thought it would be a good conversation to have. It's in no way political. This is a fact-finding mission. Statistics are discussed and policy in your home maybe, or how to handle gun safety with your kids, how to handle gun safety in general. So I don't want anybody thinking, oh God, they're going to talk about gun restriction. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about how to keep your kids safe and how to keep your house safe and how to keep yourself safe where guns are concerned. So I hope you enjoy it. Again, momsdemandaction.org is the group they're a part of. They invite anyone to check them out. You can go to wifeotp.com and email me if you want to contact either of these ladies. They've invited you to do so on the podcast, so feel free. And you can email me anything you want also. Thanks for coming back every week. I love doing this podcast. It's really fun. We're almost at 1 million downloads. I'm so excited. That makes me so excited. So thank you. Thank you, everybody who keeps downloading every week. And I hope you enjoy this conversation about gun safety. Since you've never been on my podcast before, my intention is to learn.
Okay.
And to hopefully other people learn while I'm learning. And to be, really open and curious. So hopefully, especially because this subject matter tends to be touchy.
Yeah.
I want everybody else listening to know my intention for this, because we're going to talk about guns, and guns is a hot button topic for both sides of the fence. Totally. For a myriad of reasons. And my intention is to learn and to be open. It's not to judge. I don't think you guys are doing this. I'm saying this for the people listening.
Okay.
It's not to judge either side or make a decision or be emphatic or promote a candidate, or I have no agenda other than to learn. So if anybody listening thinks there's something else going on, there's not. I just want to have an open discussion like I would have with my friends about guns and see where it goes. So I have no agenda. If you're watching on YouTube, I have no notes. I have no structure for this discussion. Just like if you and if the three of us were going to lunch and having a discussion. That's what I want it to be about. I had a discussion like this that popped up. I had an agenda in one podcast that was about one thing, and a mom brought up another subject that we just jumped into. And even though I put my disclaimer out, hey, I don't know what I'm talking about here, I just want to have a real conversation, I got a lot of flack for it. So right. I don't want to get flack for something which I am very openly saying, I just am curious and want to learn. Does that make sense?
100%. I mean, and just for myself and for Stacey, I think I want to be very clear that we're actually, I guess, I don't want to say we're not here with an agenda.
Yeah.
Because the agenda we're here with is to provide information
about
gun safety.
Which I won't have.
We're to be very clear, like, this is not, I don't consider this a political conversation.
No.
I consider
it's
this
not a political podcast.
I consider this like a health conversation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I consider this a mom conversation.
Yeah, totally.
When anybody has information that I don't have, I'm always like, sweet. Give it to me. Tell
me too.
Give
Same.
me what you got.
Same.
Because then I know more. And we all are better when we know more.
Totally.
And Stacey and I happen to feel very passionately about gun safety.
Right.
And so for us, we're like, if we can share what we've learned,
right,
only good can come of that.
Totally.
Right.
And gun safety and gun control are two different things.
Couldn't be more
completely different.
Totally different. So
couldn't be more different.
And
we actually don't even like to say gun control.
Right.
It's actually sort of something we're really trying to remove from the language in the United States.
Right.
Because the truth is, none of it is control. No one is trying to control anybody. No one's
Right.
trying to take away guns. No one, and all of these things. We are just trying to keep people safe. The United States has the highest rate of gun deaths in the entire world.
Yeah.
By, I actually wrote it down. It was like the one thing I didn't remember. Stacey, do you remember this one?
I don't.
Man.
100 people die every day in the
Right.
United States from gun violence in some capacity.
Which is crazy.
Crazy.
That's crazy. I wonder how much of it is accidental.
Funny. So 2/3 of it is suicide.
Right.
Are you kidding?
Yes. No.
What?
We're not kidding.
2/3 of it is suicide?
Right.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
So that's actually, for me, like one of the main things I wanted to talk about is storage of guns and how it relates to both what unintentional deaths. We don't call them accidental deaths because it's not an accident.
It's
An
not an
accident is
accident.
something you can't prevent.
Right.
If you're, you know what an accident is.
Falling
but
into a pool,
that's an accident.
That's an accident.
Right? I mean, although frankly,
well, you can put a fence up.
That's
Yep, I guess
preventable.
so. Right.
But with for example, 2 days ago in New Jersey, dad fell asleep in his bedroom taking a nap, had a loaded gun in his next to him on his table. 4-year-old came into the room, saw the gun,
Right.
shot himself in the face, and he just died.
Oh my God.
So to me, that's
That's
not an
terrible.
accident,
Right.
right? That gun should have been locked
That's
up.
Should have been
carelessness.
locked up. The ammunition should have been somewhere else. Exactly.
It's carelessness on the
Completely.
adult's part.
Right.
Yeah, it's thoughtlessness. I think sometimes people become very laissez-faire about their guns, and they
No question.
don't really think about something like that. Especially when you have a 4-year-old in your house. That 4-year-old has no concept.
No.
Once they get a little older, they have more of a concept. Not that you should leave them loaded and available, but at least as a parent, one would think, I have a 4-year-old here. Maybe I should put the gun up.
Right.
You'd hope an 8-year-old would know better than to touch it.
Well,
but
an 8-year-old still. I mean, I have 2 boys. I have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I talk about guns all the time.
Yeah.
And if I say, if we're at a house and someone pulls out a gun, what's the first thing you do? They're like, oh, cool.
Right.
I mean, there's still 12-year-old boys that are fascinated by them. We have Nerf guns all in our house. This is how they play. They make Lego guns. So when, my kids are going to a new house, I say, hi, do you have any guns? And if so, are they locked up?
Yep.
I want to make sure my kids are safe because they're still fascinated by
A gun.
a gun, a weapon of any kind. Right?
Do you mind if I ask, do you own a gun?
I don't, but
don't.
I grew up in a family that has guns.
Yeah, you are from...
I'm from Virginia.
Virginia, yeah.
Rural. We grew up in Navy Town. We would be in our backyard and hear shotguns shooting all over the neighborhood because people were doing target practice or we had a hunt club down the street.
Yeah.
My husband grew up in Texas, so I grew up in gun culture, and so did he.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, me too, obviously.
I mean,
From rural Georgia.
a lot of people, guns on the back, in their trucks. And
Yeah.
so it's something I'm used to being around.
Yeah, we had a shotgun wedding. And in the wedding, somebody said, anybody got a shotgun? And they just showed up.
They pull it.
They're like, I sure do.
They've got
I heard
'em.
about
There.
you. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I grew up in that culture too. I have guns. They're locked up. They are unloaded, ammo somewhere else.
Fantastic.
If they're not in a locked, we have one gun that's in a thumbprint, unlockable safe. And then I have a 38 that has a trigger lock that's unloaded.
Gotcha.
And the keys are not with the gun. So, and the ammo is not with the gun. So really it's deemed useless, right? So there's no point in really owning the gun, I feel like, in a certain, because then I would be like, someone broke in my house, it'd be like, give me 2 seconds here.
Right.
I got to unlock. I got to go find the ammo. just have a seat.
So it's we get asked that question a lot.
Yeah.
And you are statistically way more likely to have your gun used on you
Yeah.
Right.
than as a defense mechanism.
Right.
So even imagine when you, I'm sure you've been woken up at 2 a.m. by whatever, crying kid, dog barking. Imagine having the forethought, even if your gun was accessible, to use it, aim it accurately, not hit a dog, not hit a kid who's
Not
running
hope
in.
it's exactly your kid that's
kid
actually
ran in
made
because
the
they heard a noise.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's multiple instances where
Totally,
people
yeah.
have shot family members thinking they're intruders.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see that.
So you are a responsible gun owner, right? Like I would happily send so kind of going back to what Stacey said, we have no problem saying to people, hey, my kid has a nut allergy, just a heads up. Or, hey, my kid doesn't know how to swim. Hey, my kid is terrified of dogs. Do you have a dog?
Totally.
And conversely, like you may, your kids are older now, but like when they were little, you may have said to a parent, hey, FYI, I have a big dog.
Yeah.
Just so your kid
always.
knows
The first thing you said to me when you walked in the door.
Right.
Yeah, still.
But I would imagine you probably don't offer, by the way, I'm a gun owner.
No, I don't do that.
Right. And so it's not, but yet you are the kind of gun owner that should be proud, right? Like you're
doing it right. Yeah.
Everything right.
We do.
People
And that gun up there is a pellet gun. Just so you know, that is a pellet gun. That's not a rifle. It's a pellet gun. So sorry.
So I just say no. It's
Well,
fine.
somebody might see it and go,
right.
"She got
it's not
locked up."
Right.
That was not locked up. That one is used to shoot squirrels and rats
yeah.
that get in my chicken coop.
so my
I love that you have a
go-to
chicken coop.
is I send a text especially now my daughter just started middle school and it's all new people that I don't know.
Totally, yeah.
And so if she's going somewhere new, it's super easy. I'm like, hey,
Part of the
Leanne,
conversation.
Zoe is
Yeah.
super excited to come play with Georgia today. I just wanted to give you a heads up. We'd love to have Georgia back. Just so you know, we have a pool. It's not gated because the kids are old enough now and we don't have any nut allergies. And just let you know, we also don't have any guns in our home. How about you?
Right.
And just so you know, I have never had anyone be upset.
Right.
Never.
If anything, like I did have somebody respond and was like, we do have guns. Do you want to come over and see how they're stored?
Oh, that's
Oh, that's
cool.
fantastic.
And I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'll check it out when I bring Zoe.
Yeah. That's
Totally.
Great.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So the more you do it, like the first couple times I literally was like sending the text and my hands were like shaking. I'm like,
It creates anxiety, no question.
I am ruining my child's social life by keeping her safe.
But
Well,
the reality is,
wait,
if you make it
speaking of
normal, it becomes normal.
Right, totally.
So it's just
and now so many people tell me that because I did it for them,
they do it.
they
for
do
do
it
it.
now
Yeah.
for
That's
other
awesome.
people.
Same here. Yeah.
That's very cool. That's a very cool way of approaching it. Going, here are my cards.
Right. Yep.
What are your cards?
What do you have?
That's really cool because I feel like some people would probably feel that they're going to be stigmatized for asking that question, for
Right.
being that person,
Sure.
you know. So it is such a loaded topic here. And in LA, I don't, people keep being Republican a secret in LA.
Yeah.
And I think they keep owning a gun a secret in
Absolutely.
LA
No question.
because it is not cool here.
No.
Now I go back to Georgia, and you don't even ask that question because every
Everybody's
single
got a gun.
person
Yeah.
is Republican or has a gun. You know what I mean? So it's not even a conversation that's maybe even necessary because that culture functions so differently.
Right.
But there's so many transplants out here from that culture to this one. Not that the culture back home is correct because I didn't grow up with my guns locked.
Right.
My guns were between the mattress and the box spring loaded.
Sure. I mean, I'm surprised.
But that's normal there.
That's normal
I
there.
know.
And as an adult, I think, boy, you must not have had any kind of rowdy sex. Because that gun would have gone off
in many ways.
How in the world
Yeah.
did that not go off? And
Right.
they'd always have it like at their head,
Well, of
so
course,
you could
somebody likes that.
roll
Go up.
off the bed and grab it. And you know what? My mother used it once. We had
Wow.
someone who was trying to get in our house. And she got that gun out and just showed it to him through the window and said, I'm going to shoot your fucking ass if you come in my house. And he left.
Wow.
So it
Well,
It's the first time
It
I've
works.
ever heard that.
was a
Honestly.
scary moment. I was
That's
in the
awesome.
closet on the phone with 911. Like,
I'm sure.
911! And my mom's going, you come in here. I'll shoot your fucking ass. You come in my house. Of course, acting like a lunatic probably
helped a
helped
little
that.
bit.
You know,
yeah.
'cause
Right.
most perpetrators think if you're in too much trouble, I'm not going to go after you.
Right.
So,
So true.
but the gun probably did not hurt that particular instance.
Yeah.
It's the one-off, I guess.
No, I mean,
No, there's
always
situations, no
instances, for
questions.
sure.
Yeah.
I always think that, I mean, growing up in my house, if we had a gun that was accessible and it was loaded, the amount of fighting that happened in our house, I don't know that someone would have walked out, you know? Like, so I think
What do you mean?
Oh, like, I mean, we just had a
You think
lot of-
somebody would have?
I think you get heated and you get into this moment and there's a loaded gun in the house and, you know, who knows
Oh, you
what would
think
have
someone would have shot somebody?
happened. Oh, good. God, it's possible.
Really?
So in instances of domestic violence,
Right, exactly.
a woman is 21 times
More likely.
more likely to die if there is a gun
in the house.
That's crazy. Wow.
Domestic violence is a huge issue, and that's
So if suicide is 2/3,
Mhm.
what percentage is like that? Is domestic violence?
You have the sheet in front of you.
So but I didn't, that one I didn't, and I honestly think I left my phone at home. So, I really was, because I was trying to not be,
One in
brought a lot
five,
of
isn't
notes.
it?
trying to not be political. So
One
I
in
was
five.
really
No, that's not
focused on
political.
Women,
suicide.
no,
That's a fact.
That's a fact.
Right?
Right, exactly.
That's the thing about a lot of politics.
So,
is it's fact.
DV isn't, I don't think DV is broken out in those statistics. It's,
DV? What's DV?
Domestic violence.
Halston.
Oh.
Oh, you're looking.
I'm not hip to the terms.
The info is, it's when you go to that Everytown research page, it should be like the top graphic.
Isn't it 1 in 5?
So DV is domestic violence. I mean, just to like give you a few statistics.
I
just 'cause
love
they're
statistics
interesting.
because statistics are
Data.
are data. It's
Exactly.
not, you can't be like, well, you're definitely lying. No, it's
No,
it's
this is
database.
straight
data.
up.
Yeah.
So here are some of the big ones. So 36,383 people die in the United States every year from guns. I would like to say that number is most likely much lower than the truth because a lot of times it's not reported. People just die, and it's,
Doesn't and that doesn't include maiming or injury.
correct. That is death.
Shooting. That's a death.
That's an actual death.
Okay, thank you, Halson.
Okay, so so that's domestic violence. So
Yes, 52 women a month.
Yeah.
52 women a month die or are shot. Die. Jesus.
Just in our
the
country.
intent category.
What
That's
about
I
men
was-
in domestic violence? Because they are victims of violence too.
Occasionally,
It's not-
but
it's not
suicide is
statistically
more.
significant.
Yeah, suicide is more prevalent.
So, okay, so 2/3 of those 36,000 plus gun deaths are suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Of that, 74% are white men.
Suicide by gun.
Yeah.
It's too violent for women.
70, and so homicide is more likely to happen to black men.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide, white men. And if you have access to a gun in your home,
Mm-hmm.
you are 3 times more likely to die by suicide
Wow.
than if you don't have access to a gun.
That's-
One of
that-
the big things we say, it's the difference between a bad day and a worse day is access to a gun.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because suicide often is an impulse decision.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of my, like, I don't like to use the word favorite because it's hardly a favorite thing, but like one of my most intense statistics is, so less than 5% of suicide attempts are successful if you don't use a gun. If you do use a gun, it's 85%.
Yeah.
Wow.
However, 90%, I talked to my 10-year-old, almost 10-year-old, and I were talking about this on the way to school because he saw me like researching and he was like, oh, are you going to go do some gun work? And I always like it because he always manages to phrase it in the exact opposite way of what I'm doing. He's like, are you going to go help with gun violence? I'm like,
Yeah. No.
if we could just rephrase. So,
That's pretty adorable though.
so 90% of people who attempt suicide do not attempt again. So what that
Well,
says,
they're dead.
No,
Or-
attempt.
Oh,
People
attempt.
who survive.
No,
Attempt.
they're-
attempt.
So
Okay.
90% of
Got
people
it,
who
got it.
survive
Got
a suicide attempt
Got it.
don't try again. So so I said to Oliver this morning, what does that tell you? And he goes, it tells me that they didn't really want to die.
That's
Right.
right. Yeah.
And I said, exactly, except if you use a gun,
You're just more likely to.
you're way more likely to die.
Right.
Or be
So-
severely maimed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's awful.
So access to a gun on a bad day
Right.
will ultimately end in
Albeit domestic violence or self-harm.
I'm looking.
Either one.
either one.
Either one is a bad idea.
It's actually a lot of people come to gun violence prevention because of like the mass shootings, school shootings, things
Sure.
like that get you riled up as moms. It impacts us and we feel it intensely as we kiss our kids goodbye every morning. And you wonder, is it going to happen? But they're so not likely to happen. That's
Right.
the reality. But most people come to this because of that. And then they sit in a room and hear about survivor stories and often realize they are a survivor themselves.
Really? How
Most
so?
people don't realize that they're
They're a survivor.
survivors.
How so? How would you, can you give an example?
They realize their father killed themselves by gun when they were 17.
Oh, okay.
Or
But they didn't think about it because it was suicide. They didn't relate it to the gun.
or gun violence in
I
a sense,
see.
even though it's 2/3 of the deaths that
Okay,
happen.
that makes sense.
And also, a lot of times people think if it didn't happen to them,
It's not an actual,
they're not survivors.
Right.
You know, like I had someone say to me once, a lot of times what will happen to us is when we're at meetings and stuff like that, people will come up to us and they'll be like, I have a question.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me. I have a question. I don't know if I'm a survivor or not. And my whole thing is that is for you to determine. Everyone, that is a personal, not private, but that's a personal feeling.
Sure.
And I'm just here for you. Like, I'm here for whatever that looks like to you. And, they'll say, well, I never thought about myself as a survivor, but when I was, this just happened to me recently, when I was 22, 23, my best friend's husband shot and killed her and their daughter.
Right.
Mm.
And then you're like,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden watching somebody go through this
that process. Yeah.
realization of like, oh, and this person I was, and ever since then, I'm terrified of guns and I don't like to be alone and I have trouble dating and I don't trust men and all of these things. And she's like, so maybe I am a survivor.
Right.
And, and a lot of times that's kind of how it comes about is they don't realize that they view being a survivor as like you were shot and lived.
Totally.
Or impacted in a situation, a mass shooting situation or something. My mom's a survivor and she never knew it.
Oh, yeah?
She witnessed as a child a murder-suicide
Oh, my God.
out a window.
Oh, my God.
There was yelling. They were at a friend's house and all the kids looked out the window and a man pulled out a gun and killed his wife and himself in front of them.
Oh, my God.
And
That's
so I
terrible.
grew up knowing that my whole life. She
Yeah.
would talk about it, but this, no question, impacted her experience as a mom, as a wife, as,
A human being.
as a human.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As a human being. It's amazing how a label can be the final piece in the Tetris board,
No
right?
question.
Or the first piece that makes everything crumble. If you just have
Right.
a label and can identify
Or an
what-
identity. Exactly.
Yes.
This is
It can start a healing process or it can do the opposite.
do the opposite. Exactly.
It can just make things crumble. So it's amazing how the psyche works, how you cope through things, not aware or maybe not even knowing that you're a survivor of whatever, of domestic violence, of gun violence, of, mental anguish
Exactly.
caused by another human. And then all of a sudden you go, hold on, wait a minute. That's crazy. I didn't realize that I had that experience also. It's crazy how your brain works.
I just going back to what you were saying about domestic violence. I misspoke a little bit. So in the U.S., women are 21 times more likely to be killed with a gun than women in other high-income countries.
I see.
So, but with what I was saying before, access to a gun in a domestic violence situation makes it 5 times more likely that the woman will be killed,
Right.
which is still a pretty significant number. And I think, as Halston was saying, in an average month, 52 American women are shot to death by an intimate partner, and many more are injured. Nearly 1 million women alive today have been shot or shot at by an intimate partner. And then what I think, going back to what we were just saying, 58% of American adults or someone they care for have experienced gun violence.
Right.
58%.
Over half
That's
of
a
our
lot.
country.
That's a
And so-
lot.
And it's like, all we want to do as parents is we want to keep our family safe. We want to keep our kids safe. We send our kids to school every day. I was just watching an interview with Fred Gutenberg, whose daughter Jamie was killed in Parkland.
Oh.
And he's like, all I can ever remember, he's like, all I think about all the time is I was rushing her to school in the morning and I didn't tell her I loved her. And I am telling you, every single morning, I'm like, I love you.
Yep.
I love you so much.
Don't walk out the door.
Zoe,
come give me a hug.
Zoe, I need a hug. Come here.
I need a hug.
You should see my husband. It's a little bit nutty. And it really is because of that.
Yeah.
Because of school shootings. We just had a big discussion about it in our family the other day because he was like, I think it makes them massively uncomfortable because I make them kiss me goodbye and I make them say I love you every day. It's not natural for them because it's so forced on them.
Right.
That he's like, I think that's actually unhealthy.
No.
And he cannot not do it. He can't not do it every day. If they're leaving, he will run out the front door to the street in his underwear.
There's a YouTube clip that my kids, we love to watch. It's a little boy. He's probably like 4 and his dad's leaving for work and he's like, I love you, Dad. And he's like, I love you, son. He's like, be a good fart man. And he's like, you be a good fart man too. And they're like going back and forth. And then he's like, bye, buddy. And he walks out the door and the little boy's playing and all of a sudden he goes, I didn't say I love my dad.
Oh.
I didn't say I love my dad.
Oh my God.
And he goes running to the front door and he's like, I love my dad. I mean, it's one of our favorites to watch.
That's awesome.
And it's just, but it's like, sometimes I feel like running after Zoe's car, but being like, I love my daughter.
No.
Bert has been known to run after the car for sure. Down, all the way down. That. Yeah. To make sure they heard I love you and that he gets it back. He needs it back.
He needs to hear it back. Yeah.
It's pretty funny. But okay, devil's advocate.
Totally.
Because I like trying to find the devil's advocate because I think that's how you find a solution to any problem or an answer to any question is you can't just have your own point of view.
Right.
Because what's the point in that?
Everybody else's.
And because we definitely live in a country where everyone does not have the same point of view. And that's wonderful. So I can hear people from my hometown saying, well, the things you're describing are because the adult that shot the person has no self-control. Or it's because the adult that shot the person has mental problems. Or it's the person's problem, not the gun. The gun can't pick itself up and fire. The person is the problem. So maybe you have to deal with the person. That's what I hear people saying.
Sure.
Right. From where I'm home. What would you say to that? How do you answer that question?
Well, I mean, one of the main things we work on is background checks, universal background checks. So if you have a history of domestic violence, if you have a history of criminal violence, I personally feel you should not have access to a gun.
Right.
So
yeah, I agree with you.
Well, so do 90+% of Americans. That's the hardest part is that the background check bill is not getting passed right now, even though literally it's like one of the only things everyone agrees on.
Right.
Right. So
why isn't it getting passed?
Do you want to get political?
Yeah, that's.
Well, I mean, I don't know why.
I'll tell you why. So
I don't know why.
Because Mitch McConnell, who controls the Senate, will not pass any of the bills right now.
It's been almost 300 days since a background
it's just sitting on his desk.
bill was passed by the House, and it's just sitting on his desk.
So it's been passed by the House already, and he won't.
But why?
Money.
What do you mean?
I think it's money from the
NRA.
The NRA.
Oh, NRA is paying Mitch McConnell or someone?
I mean, not like paying him off, but like supporting his
funding
campaign.
His campaigns, yes.
I see.
And I mean, Mitch McConnell is basically, he calls himself the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
Well, that's fancy. Because I want that guy.
Yeah.
Taking care of me.
It's pretty, again, like I don't want to get political. Like I do respect that people have different viewpoints and different values and different ideas. Obviously I have mine. I'm sure we all in this room have varying degrees of views on all sorts of issues. I do think this is one of them that, again, another one is the Violence Against Women Act, which is sort of, it's been around. Bush went through it.
All of them.
They've all passed the Violence Against Women Act, and again, he won't.
It's just sitting there. Well, they're
pass it.
trying to pass it, but they put the violence against. Was it the gun loophole? Is that what's?
So there's something called the boyfriend loophole.
Yeah.
So one of the things that somebody might come back at you and say, well, bad guys can't get guns, right? So first of all, it's not true, and we can talk about that in a minute because that has to do with federal laws. So like California, the number one argument that you always hear is, well, Chicago has more guns than anybody, And they have
the
Illinois has
strongest
some of the
laws.
strictest gun law, or Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws ever. But they still have guns everywhere. Well, if you look at a map, Illinois is surrounded by states with some of the least restrictive gun laws anywhere.
Right.
So all you have to do is you
Drive
go
across the state.
drive across the state line. You can buy 10 guns,
Right.
and you just come right on back home. So
Right.
until we have federally regulated laws,
Right.
we're all kind of screwed.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
makes sense.
Even here
Same
in
in California,
California,
right.
we've got
Nevada.
Nevada and Arizona.
And look at them states surrounding that Chicago state, huh? Any hillbillies in any of them states? Might be one or two.
Couple,
One or two
maybe.
in Ohio.
You know, I think that it's all about like education. Like okay, here's my story I like to tell. I'm from California, right? I'm one of those born and raised snowflake liberals. Except for
You're not.
I'm not. I was raised very Republican. I have very Republican parents.
Yeah.
My dad is a gun owner.
Yeah.
You know, they call me the one that got away. Except that, interestingly enough, they have 3 children who did not choose their same political path.
Isn't that interesting?
Yep. To varying degrees. But, so this is the story I like to tell. Growing up, my dad had a gun in his bedside table, loaded, ready to protect the family.
Right.
We all knew it was there. My parents have always been, I guess the one thing we never said is Stacey and I both volunteer for an organization called Moms Demand Action.
Moms Demand Action. Okay. Is there a website?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
momsdemandaction.org.
Yeah.
I figured.
It was started after the Sandy Hook shootings in 2012.
Okay.
For anyone who's not familiar, in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, 27?
Six. Yeah.
First graders and adults, six
Teachers.
adults. Well, not all teachers.
Oh, that's her principal.
Tom Luxembourg, were killed. And after that, a woman named Shannon Watts was just beside herself. She didn't know what to do. So she started a Facebook group. And here we are.
That's
we
great.
have over 6 million
6 million,
volunteers
yeah.
across the country.
Amazing.
We have chapters in every single state. And then within the state, there's multiple local groups. So and this is not like a push, but I will say one of the main groups that we really want to get involved are gun owners.
Right.
We want gun owners to be a part of our organization.
Right.
We want gun owners to volunteer with us because we need people to understand that we are not anti-gun.
Right.
We are not trying to take your guns away. We just want our babies to be safe.
Right.
We want our families to be
Our
safe.
families. Yeah.
Well, I think the problem with gun safety is the rational people are already pretty safe. Is people? No, you don't think
Well,
so?
so here, okay, so let me finish my story.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm pretty
Her
safe.
family.
So you are
You are.
100%. So here's my parents, while they, you know, they're proud of the work I do in a general sense, and
Yeah.
you know, but my dad would always sort of like, you know, a little crazy, you know,
Yeah.
and he always talked about how safe he was.
Yeah.
He was such a safe gun owner, such a safe gun owner. And I was having a conversation with my brothers. I have 2 younger brothers. They're like, we played with dad's gun all the time. We took it out. We played with it. Tossed it back and forth.
What?
Showed it to our friends.
Fully loaded. Yeah.
And I called my mom. And my mom had always been, my mom is you know, she supports my dad in all things. And I said to her, you know, she was always very adamant, like, well, our house was always safe. And I said, did you know that Mikey and Ben played with dad's gun? No, they didn't. I go, no, they did. I had a whole conversation with my brother's wife about it. She goes, what? And I said, yeah, many times throughout their lives, we all knew where that gun was. She goes, oh, I forgot about that. And I said, we are so lucky
Yeah.
that nobody
question.
got killed
Yeah, totally. Or hurt badly.
or anything, or that shot a friend.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows
Totally.
what actually, you know, throughout the years. And my mom was literally like dumbstruck. Like she just was she had always considered herself, they were safe gun
safe
owners.
ones, yeah.
Right.
They were responsible gun owners. And the number of times that people have said to me, No, my gun is totally safe. It's on a high shelf in a shoebox.
My kids have no idea.
The kids have no idea.
Yeah.
To anybody who is listening, your children know where your guns
exactly
are.
where they are.
Yeah.
And they know how to get to them.
And I know you're thinking to yourself right now, not my kid.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Your kid knows just like they know where you hid the candy.
Yep.
Right.
Right? That
They
Halloween
do.
candy. The other day, I was in our guest room and I like spotted something on this, like I kind of was like straightening up and there was like a little bucket filled with
wrappers,
Halloween candy wrappers.
Because they were empty.
And I was like,
that's funny.
And I remembered, by the way, I had put that bucket on a high shelf in the pantry.
Yeah.
Behind like an unopened box of like brownie mix, like an extra thing.
Yep.
Guess what?
They found it.
It was found.
It was found.
Yep.
It was hidden under a bed.
Yeah.
Happy as clams eating their Skittles.
How funny.
So
That's funny, but not the point you're making. Yeah, I know when I was a kid, my dad and my mom handled this the same way. And, they were divorced. So I find it interesting they handled their guns with me in the same way. They showed me where they were. They showed me where all of them were. And they told me they were all loaded. And they told me not to touch them. And this is why. This is very serious. This is not a game. This is not a joke. You do not touch these ever under any circumstance. If someone's breaking in the house, you do not touch these. Right. This is an adult item only, and someone could be killed. And I never fucking touched any of them. Not that that's the right way to handle it. Right. But at least my parents had that conversation with me and said, here's the pistol between the mattress and the box spring. Here's the rifle.
We have
the other one in the drawer.
No jumping on the bed. No jumping on the bed. If you jump on the bed, there may be fireworks.
Leanne now knows why the number one rule in the house was no jumping on the bed.
Yeah, exactly. You might lose a toe if you jump on the bed. Right. But I say that because I think that some parents might think, that'll work. I'm just going to tell them where they all are, tell them they're loaded, tell them not to touch them. I think I was a one-off. I was a kid that went.
You seem like you were a good kid, a rule follower.
I was a rule follower, and I also got spanked.
Sure.
So that punitive, the threat of any spanking, I wasn't going to do it. Because I didn't like getting spanked. It was not super fun. So, what are you laughing at? You probably got spanked too.
I grew up in a spanking house.
Yeah.
I did too. Again, you guys, I grew up in California, but not really. I grew up in my own
in the secret part.
I grew up in the.
But you tell my kids don't touch that. They can't. My kids are
also firearms suicide for teenagers is up really high. So
a lot of things for teenagers is up really high. Anxiety, suicide in general,
social media,
stress.
So imagine now
that
you are, you have all this information. Your parents trust you. You're a real good kid.
But it won't matter because it'll be over.
You've had a real bad day.
Yeah.
And
you got a bad
like,
grade on your test, and you're upset, and you feel like you're not going to get into the college you want to. And
we have a dear friend of ours whose brother came home and killed himself with a gun because his girlfriend broke up with him.
Oh.
And he just didn't think it was going to get any better. This was a kid, scholarship to college,
right?
Star athlete, like beloved family, loved by everyone. I mean, this story is a regular occurrence that we hear all the time.
So back to my devil's advocate question.
Yes.
Because
did I answer it?
I don't think we did.
Okay.
So then someone would say, well, I would imagine someone with an opposing point of view would say, well, then that kid was going to do it anyway. Or that kid, again, with if there's, the problem is not the gun, the problem is the person making the choice.
Go back to my statistic.
Access to the gun.
Yes.
Going back to my statistic, 85% of suicide attempts by a gun are successful.
Right.
Whereas only 5% without a gun. So maybe you're right. That kid may have been like, I'm going to go swallow a bottle of Tylenol.
Right? Yeah.
Right? Except that if you swallow a bottle of Tylenol,
you have time.
You're not going to feel so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as long as...
And you have time.
You have a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah.
It's instantaneous.
Even if you without getting into all graphic details, but other ways that you might attempt suicide, you have time.
Right.
If you have access to a gun,
there's planning.
There's no time. It's an impulse, right?
Right.
If you need to go find where the pills are and see how many are there, and maybe you want to figure out how many you I need, and find the like guns are
and it's over.
And I think that the excuse of like, well, it's gonna happen anyway,
right?
So car accidents are gonna happen no matter what, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't mean we don't wear seatbelts.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't mean we don't take driver's ed.
Right.
It doesn't mean we don't have licenses.
Right. What's interesting is there's some people in this world that I talk to when I go back home that still don't wear seatbelts. That is the outliers that are never going to comply. They're never going to put their gun in a safe.
Sure.
Not ever. And
we can't stop everybody,
right?
Everyone.
Uh-oh. Here comes trouble.
Hold on.
What?
Nothing. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Chillaxing.
Okay.
On the dog bed.
Okay.
Should I?
You can just leave her. Did the delivery come?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Have a great spin class. This is Stacy. Stacy, my husband, Bert.
Hi, how are you? Good.
Sorry, you just had to see me in my pervert britches.
It's all
I
right.
know. My dad calls those pervert britches.
It's amazing.
His spin shorts he's wearing those pervert britches. I don't know why he walks out of the house in those pervert britches.
Pervert britches.
I'm like, that is because you can see
I want
his
to call
wiener.
things pervert britches. That's the best thing I've ever.
Oh, Jimmy Kemp, and
Right.
he goes on a hike in overalls when he comes here.
Right.
He's pretty country guy.
Liam's dad comes to town and he's like, "What am I gonna fix?
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
What am I gonna build?
When we were at the
What am I gonna make?"
elementary
Comes to town.
school,
Yeah,
we
what can
would
we
work
fix?
at the elementary school all day in the farm.
Oh.
We
love
built
it.
benches. I was walking the dog the other day by the kinder gate on the street, and I saw the benches my dad built. How many years ago? Probably 7 years ago. He built all these benches that were originally for the farm to sit outside the farm, so you could sit outside the farm and watch the animals. And that we painted them like red and yellow and green. And I was like, "Oh, my daddy built those benches. That's so cool.
That's awesome.
So cool."
There's no.
That's what frustrates me.
So there's no disputing the fact, but that's in everything in life.
It is in
There's
everything.
always going to be people that don't follow the rules.
That's right.
But it doesn't mean we don't have rules, right?
Totally. Totally.
Murder is against the law, right?
Yes.
We punish it. We do all the things to prevent it. Doesn't mean people don't still get murdered.
Right.
But it's not like we're going to be like, well, murder for everybody.
Yeah.
you know?
No. Totally.
So we still have to have, and I think that like that's such a common, I call it an NRA talking point, right?
Yes.
Like, bad people are still gonna. We need to protect ourselves.
That's why I brought it up. It's the devil's
100%.
advocate. Because
The
I
good guy
think
with the
there
gun
are
theory.
so many people.
There's a great video called the good. There's a great. So it's called The Good Guy with the Gun or something like that, and it's basically like, how do you identify? The good guy with the gun, right? So at the in El Paso, Texas, right, mass shooting that happened
In the church. No, the school or the church?
no, the El Paso Walmart.
Oh, okay.
So what?
Yes.
That's the story I'm telling. So El Paso Walmart mass shooting, right?
Yeah.
There was a man in the store who was armed.
Right.
He was black. He took out his gun to try to be helpful.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden realized, I'm going to get myself fucking killed.
Yeah.
Right.
So he quickly, what do you say? Holstered
his gun.
What is shoulder?
And
I made that up.
He started saving people instead,
And started
right?
saving people instead.
Yeah.
And
Was he going to try to shoot the shooter?
he was going to try to help. And he realized, what the hell am I going to do against
Cops
a man
showing-
with this assault weapon?
Right.
Right?
Military style weapon.
Military grade weapon.
And then police show up and don't know who the shooter is, or maybe there's two shooters, so
Right.
they're going to try to take both of them out. So this guy, he puts himself, a target on himself by pulling his gun out.
Yeah, totally.
Once
The
the police
good guys,
show-
the good guys don't wear badges,
Right.
They don't, I mean, sometimes they do, but like in a general situation, you have no way of knowing
Who's good and who's
who's
bad.
good and who's
That
bad.
makes sense. Yeah.
And so, and also remember, there's multiple instances where like off-duty police officers, Pulse nightclub, for example,
Oh, yeah.
the first person they killed was the security guard.
Right.
So this idea that we have in our head that like we're gonna be the good guy with the gun,
Right.
it's like it's just unrealistic.
Also, what is
Right.
it? Cops hit their target 30% of the times, and these are trained professionals
Right.
that do this daily.
Right.
So a random person on the street that pulls out their gun,
You're way
I
more
don't trust
likely
that
to hurt
situation.
someone
I'm
else.
sorry.
So I think really we live in a delusion, right? Of what it looks like to be a gun owner and how you can protect yourself. It's a rare person that actually can protect themselves on their homestead or on their property, which is what most people say they own a gun for, is to protect my property. That's really so very unrealistic that you should either not own a gun or not rely on a gun for that.
Unless, I mean, I feel like if you have exorbitant amounts of training consistently and you feel comfortable. I mean, my husband's family were farmers in Nebraska and Texas. You know, they had to have guns to protect their farm and their livestock.
Same,
so,
my grandfather,
exactly.
same.
So I think there are reasons to own a gun.
Totally.
No question.
That is a valid,
100%.
you know,
No question.
There's no reason to own. This is my opinion. There is no reason for me to own a gun in Los Angeles.
I feel the same way.
There's
I
no
don't feel
reason.
safe. I would not feel safer with one in my house.
No, my gun, I got my 38 for my 21st birthday. I was living in Georgia, and that was my gift from my stepfather. He gave me a 38 because I was old enough to have 38. And so I don't want to get rid of it as a gift for that
Sentimental,
reason,
exactly.
right? I still have my BB gun from when I was a kid. But the guns Bert bought, I actually didn't want him to buy. First of all, because he's never owned a gun. And I believe if you don't grow up owning guns, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And unless you go through a serious training, like if you go to police academy or you go through some real serious training. I don't think I've been shooting guns since I was 7 years old. And that's part of my culture. And we had 250 head of cattle and we shot coyotes and we, you know.
Part of your culture.
It was part of how we lived.
How you were raised.
When we went camping, we brought a gun because there was always something that there was all these poisonous snakes that we would shoot, you know, and we never, we weren't a hunting family, but we did use gun for protection, but not against people.
Right.
It was against like wildlife. But, so obviously I learned to shoot a gun when I was 7, and anything you learn, if you learn tennis when you're 7,
It's
you know, if you learn snow skiing when you're 7, it's very different than when you learn it when you're 30 or 40. It's in some ways it is a sport, like shooting, not the gun violence part is not a sport,
Right.
but the act of shooting a gun at a target is something that comes very naturally to kids that are introduced to it when they're younger.
Early, yes.
So when he went to buy a gun, it's an interesting story. He actually, ended up being a joke in his special that's coming out in March. So
along with me and my PTA mom.
That's the next special. That's not this special. He just wrote that. It's really funny.
I mean, I should have
really
made him
funny.
tell me.
You should make him tell you. And he doesn't have a show in LA, so you can't really see
Oh,
it.
really?
He may change your name. It's just about him running against you in the PTA.
Really?
Bert thought it would be really funny I was running unopposed for PTA.
Yeah.
Of course you are.
Because, well, trust me, everyone runs unopposed. Like, I wish we didn't. And Bert, like, at the last minute, like, thought it'd be really funny to be like, I'm going to run against her.
He had someone nominate him.
Yeah.
And then he stood up and he
just
said
like,
something
Bert.
ridiculous about Jenna.
Yeah.
In the joke, he says something really ridiculous about you. And then you go, well, but and then put your foot in your mouth and he goes, I rescind. And then you get elected. It's really funny the way he writes it. But it really happened where he was like, hey, nominate me. And then the friend next to him was like, I nominate Bert Kreischer. And Jenna's face was worth
like,
$1 million.
kidding me
Her
right
face
now?
was like, what? What's happening here?
Right?
Because we were actually 5th grade parents leaving the school. He couldn't even have been elected.
Right.
We weren't even going to be there the next year. It was all a farce. But anyway, Bert's driving down Burbank Boulevard and he sees.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes,
Still there.
Yeah.
hold on. You can buy a gun here?
Oh, yeah.
Only in Burbank.
Turns around and he goes, I'm going to try and buy a gun. So he goes in and goes, hey, I want to buy a gun. And the guy goes, you're in the right place. What do you want? What do you want it for? And Bert was like, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know anything about guns. I don't know what I want. And the guy told him what he wanted and sold him what he wanted. And then when he's asking me.
He bought the gun and walked out with it that day?
No.
No, okay.
No. Okay. He ordered the gun or whatever you have to do. And there's a process he had to go through. Going through the process, right? The whole time I'm saying, I really don't want you to own this gun. You don't know what to do with a gun. You have never had a gun. He's shot guns before at like a shooting range,
Right.
but he's never been in any kind of gun culture. He grew up in Tampa,
Right.
you know. His dad's a lawyer. He's not going to be in a gun. There's no gun. He was in a gated community. He has no guns. He's playing golf. He's not shooting guns. So I was super uncomfortable with this, and he wasn't listening to me. But he finally, in the process, said, "No, I'm testing the system. So I want to see if I can really get a gun."
Sure.
So he goes to pick up his gun, and they said, "Sorry, man, we can't give you your guns." And he goes, "Why? What do you mean, why?" And he goes, "Well, your wife is on all your utility bills' name. Her name is on all your utility bills, and we can't prove that you live where you say you live. So I can't give you your gun." And he was like, "I am so relieved. Thank
he didn't want
God,
the gun?
because I didn't actually want the gun,
That's
but I was
amazing.
trying to see how the system worked."
go.
Yeah.
Way to
For
be
doing
a
it
responsible store.
correctly.
Maybe we
Exactly.
should bleep out. Let's beep out
Okay.
because the guy says, "Oh, you're getting your guns.
Oh.
This is how we're going to do it. Call your wife and tell her to lease a room in your house to you. She can just download a standard lease it to you, and you can have your guns. Because now
That is
I've proved where you
a lot
lived."
of work just to get a gun too, man. Like,
So I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't
Right.
want to do that. I'm not doing that. He called me and I was like, "We're at full occupancy. Sorry. Totally rented up. Wrong number. Section 8, so, but I ended up doing it anyway. And he got the gun. He got a 9mm and a shotgun. And I was like, I know how to handle both of those guns. So, okay. So he starts playing with the gun like a toy. And I'm like, "Dude, this is not a toy. I am going to take the gun away from you." First thing he does is he loses the clip for the 9mm. So it's completely useless. It is a gun without a clip. You can't even put a bullet in it. I mean, you can't. So he puts it in his nightstand, and when he goes out of town, I hide it. And I hid it, and it stayed hidden forever.
he didn't remember that he put it there?
No, he couldn't find it. And he
Oh,
kept saying, "Where's my gun?" And I kept saying, until you can show me that you can act responsibly, you cannot have it. You can't
it.
just lay a
When-
gun
when
in your
was this?
nightstand. A couple of years ago.
Okay.
I was like, I can't function. This makes me so unnerved.
Hey, you have kids in the house.
Yeah.
Oh, he would lay the gun totally unloaded, no clip, can't even find the clip, still can't find the clip. He has no idea where the clip is. So it's a useless gun because you can't put a bullet in it, right? But he would lay it in the nightstand with the muzzle pointing toward his pillow. And I would just walk in and be like,
Right, just the
oh my
visual.
God, just the visual. I can't have that in my house. And I kept saying, I cannot have this happening in my house. So when the first time he went out of town, I hid it. I took it.
Good for you.
And he never found it. I said, "You can have it back when you buy a safe."
Yeah.
So he bought a safe, and it's in the thumbprint safe. And I'm like, "Now you can have it." And it's right next to his
It
pillow
still has no clip.
in the
Wait,
safe
it's-
with no clip.
With no clip.
Because he can't. He loses everything. He loses his car keys constantly. Of course, he lost the clip. He lost the clip within the first 2 days, and then he couldn't put the bullets in the clip anyway because it hurt his fingers. So he's the worst gun owner on the planet. He talks. He jammed it. He jammed the shotgun. He was like. He loaded it, and then he went, "Well, how do you get the bullet out?" And I'm like, "You
You
fucking
have to
pull the trigger,
shoot
you
it.
stupid ass." What do you think? How do you get the bullet out? You can't have a gun. This is
Right.
why I'm saying you cannot have a gun. So you should not have been allowed to walk out of that place without
Right.
some kind of education.
Some training, understanding
Yes.
how to own a gun. That to me is the most
So
It's
reckless.
mind-boggling.
It's
isn't it?
mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling. So epic fail.
Yeah.
The system was an epic fail.
The system
We
is an
thought
epic
it
fail.
was working when they said you can't have your gun.
and you were like, phew.
And then
I was like,
Yeah.
thank God. And then they said, "Oh, you're getting it."
Well, it's like we would never give someone a car
No. I mean,
without teaching them how to drive.
I was raised every time I got behind the wheel learning to drive. My dad, "You are in a 2,000-pound weapon.
Killing
You are in a killing machine, Stacy." So, we'd spend hours in, a school parking lot learning how to drive.
Right. Well, not just that. Now, I don't know if you don't have kids
You've
driving
got
age
Georgia-
yet.
they're not
you've got
driving yet,
Georgia's
no.
getting that.
They have to drive 50 hours logged with an adult before they can get their driver's license. So when they get their permit,
Fantastic.
they are required by law to have 6 hours of professional driving school. Must. They have to have 2 hours of the professional driving school before they can drive with an adult. So she can't drive with me until she's had her 2 hours. And then she has to do 4 more hours minimum and 50 hours driven logged before she can even go take her driver's test. I think that is amazing.
Amazing.
And 50 hours is a big ticket for me to have to fulfill.
Sure. Right.
But at the end of the day, if she's driven that long,
You feel safe giving her the keys.
I feel better. I don't feel safe.
Well, safer.
I feel safer. I feel better. I feel like, okay, she's at least got some stuff. But yet no education was offered to him, to my knowledge.
I mean, you look at other countries
For him.
You know, what is it? Japan? There's an entire year of training.
Yes.
An
own a
entire
gun.
year of training before you can be given a gun.
Amazing.
Amazing. Exactly. And look how many gun
But
deaths
the problem
happen
also
in that
is
country.
problem with a lot of gun deaths, besides the suicide and the ones you're talking about, the ones that happen on the street, is those guns probably aren't legal anyway, or they're not legally owned, or they're not with the legal owner, or they're
So circling back,
so-
you know where a lot of them are from? Stolen from homes.
yeah, right.
That are not.
Because-
Yeah, they're stolen
From
from
guns
homes that are
the
not
guns
correctly
that are not locked up.
locked
So
up.
Here
Exactly.
we are, you know.
yeah.
I feel like I keep not addressing the mental health issue.
Yeah,
and
okay.
and I really want to address it. So
Yeah.
one of the biggest laws that we're trying to pass federally right now are called red flag laws. In California, it's called the Gun Violence Restraining Order. Other states, it's called Extreme Risk Protection Order.
Yeah.
But the overall word is they're called red flag laws. 17 states have them right now, including California. It's one of the biggest things the NRA is fighting. And I'm going to tell you what it is.
Tell me, and tell me why they're fighting it. Because don't you think this is my head scratcher for the NRA?
Yeah.
Don't you think don't you think members of that organization have been victims of or survivors of gun violence? So why do they resist gun safety?
The members don't.
Yeah.
NRA members
Then
are
who
usually
is the quote NRA that's stopping
the
everything?
money, the board. Yeah.
the heads,
They
the ones who make the decisions.
But why?
They call
what's
it
their
slippery,
motivation?
slippery
They call it a
slope.
slippery
The slippery slope. You know,
It's
you
not a
take
slippery
one thing.
slope.
Oh,
Well, I know that.
We
you know that. And so do NRA members. I mean,
Right.
like
Most of them
we talk
want
to NRA members
all the time.
all the time, and they're like, we don't know. I mean, do you know how many NRA members have left the NRA because of this?
Really?
Yeah.
Because
Especially
they're
against
like,
background
we're
checks and
responsible gun owners. Like, we want all of this. We want safety. We don't want to be stigmatized as these
Right.
bad people.
Right.
You know, the NRA for I think the first time in like I'm going to say this incorrectly, but like their view in society is just plummeting.
Yeah.
Ah, I see.
Their funding
Public
is drying
opinion.
up.
Right. Yeah.
Their people aren't joining.
So if they don't make the change, they're going to die.
They have,
Right.
and we don't get it. Like, we're like, so going back to these red
Yeah.
flag laws. So
Sorry.
here you are, I'm Jenna. I'm a gun owner. Okay. I have 2 guns in my home. I mean, I'm not, I'm giving you an example.
Yeah.
And my husband and I have these guns. We're protecting ourselves and, we're doing it all right. And all of a sudden I notice that my husband is acting kind of fucking weird. And he's maybe angry. He's maybe threatening me. Maybe he's threatening other people. Something is amiss.
Yeah.
And it's bad. And I can tell that it's bad.
Yeah.
I can go to my local law enforcement and ask them to take away his weapons.
That's fabulous.
For a period of time.
30
Right.
days.
uh-huh.
Then he appears before a judge.
And after 30, and again, I can't be like, my husband pissed me off and I want you to take away his guns.
Yeah.
There is a process
Right.
where you need to demonstrate
Right.
that there is a valid reason
Okay.
that this person, male or female,
Anyone. Yeah.
shouldn't have access to a weapon. And by the way, suicide do you know how many suicide deaths have been prevented from red flag laws?
Really?
Because remember,
Because it's that instantaneous.
it
Right.
just takes 1 minute. So if that gun is not available, you may rethink,
Right.
or you may give yourself the gift of time,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so the gun is taken away for a period of 30 days. Then they have to go before a judge. It's all on the up and up. It's so beneficial.
It's just about pumping the brakes. I think in our society
Exactly.
today, we don't pump the brakes on anything.
Anything.
Everything is instant. I've said this story on this podcast before, but someone was saying This little girl in a local high school got kicked out of the high school because she took pictures of her boobs. She was 13 and sent it to, like 4 boys who then sent it to 4 boys each, who then sent it to 4 boys each, and so on and so on. And the person was like, it's not like in our day. If we wanted to take pictures of our boobs, we had to find a camera, find the film,
get it developed,
take the picture, get it developed,
get yelled at by the 1-hour photo place who wouldn't give us the pictures back.
Exactly. Look at the picture, and in that process, you had time to go, maybe it's a bad idea.
Maybe I shouldn't give those pictures
out. But everything nowadays is click, done.
Instant gratification.
Oh, I'm out of laundry detergent. Click, done. Oh, I need to, get dinner for tonight. Click, done.
Yeah.
Everything is so instant that I think sometimes we don't really enjoy or see the value of pumping the brakes. I'm just saying, let's just process 1 second.
Yeah.
And see what else we can figure out here. Even about dinner. Hold on. Let's look. I've got a freezer full of shit.
Yeah,
exactly.
15 more minutes and I'll have food.
You can pull it out. Yeah.
Yeah. We've become that as a culture, which is really a shame, I guess, in some ways. It's really nice to go click laundry detergent, but
of course. But we now know that like Amazon is like one of like the worst contributors to the environment.
Yes, it is.
And I mean, that is something I've tried really hard to like rein in because I'm the worst. I'm like, click, buy it now, buy it now.
I am
buy
too.
it now, buy it now.
100%.
And I finally
buy it
had to be like,
must stop. Or at least just like package them together, like, I mean, you can like have them all come next Tuesday on your one day. So you don't have 20 deliveries between now and next Tuesday.
I just saw this packaging. I don't know why they don't do something like this. It's like a shrink wrap package that's bubble wrap, but it's all made out of corn.
Yeah.
So it all disintegrates like in 6 weeks. It's because it's expensive, right?
Well,
But I can't speak for everybody, but I would pay $2 for
and
shipping.
a little extra, exactly.
To get that in that and know that was a biodegradable item so that when I threw it in the garbage 6 weeks from now, it would be back into compost or whatever it goes into. But I just saw that in a magazine and I was like, that's brilliant. And they had like a swell. You can make it any size you want. You just... And then
the technology exists.
Yep. It totally does.
And there's a lot of corn out there.
It's a lot of corn out there.
A lot of corn byproducts. A lot
of...
My daddy.
Make it happen.
My daddy's the best. To talk about my daddy. To shoot to a different topic. My dad.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, shoot.
No. It's funny.
Part of our culture.
Once you're aware of it, you'll realize how much gun language is part of
it's so
our
funny you say
vernacular.
that. This morning, I said... My daughter, and in a text message, I said, I got to pick my daughter up after she's going to play tomorrow night. And then she has to be at softball at 7:30 Sunday morning. And I was like, my daughter's be at softball at 7:30 Sunday morning. Somebody shoot me. And I went, hold on. I'm doing a gun safety in like 15 minutes. Delete.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
But it's true.
And once you're aware of it, it's like when you get a new car and all of a sudden you're like, why does everybody drive the same
car as me? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you'll start hearing.
You'll start hearing now. It's constant. Shoot me an email.
Yeah. Shoot me in the head. This sucks.
Not even shoot, but there's like
you shot yourself in the foot.
You're such a he's a target. Like there's it's constant. You'll notice it now and you'll laugh.
Crazy. Mental health. Sorry, we don't need to hear about my daddy.
So,
mental health.
But but GVROs, red flag laws, ERPOs, these are sort of the
GBRO.
GV, gun violence restraining orders.
Okay.
That's what, they can't make it easy and call it the same thing everywhere. So some states...
Because they can't make it federal.
Correct.
So again, this is what's sitting...
Another bill
sitting in the Senate that was passed bipartisan support.
That's another fight against what's state and what's federal that people like to do. And I don't understand. Safety should just be federal. Healthcare should just be federal. I mean, doesn't everybody want healthcare?
Yeah.
I think so. Everybody wants gun safety.
Yeah.
So everybody wants mental health services.
Right. Yes.
So the mental health part of this is that in multiple mass shootings, including Parkland, including Daytona,
South Carolina. Yeah.
People called and reported the person. He's gonna do
Prior.
something. Oh, he's gonna do something bad. He's threatening to kill people.
Reported to who? The police.
The police.
It actually, the California gun violence restraining order started because of the Isla Vista. The family, the parents called the police saying, my son is going to do something. and
He has a gun.
He has
wants
a gun
to go kill people.
and they could not do
And
anything.
they were like, sorry.
Why could they not do anything? Because these laws were not in place?
Correct.
The laws are not in place, and there was no physical harm yet.
Nothing bad had happened yet.
So it's just like the medical field. No
Right.
prevention.
No prevention.
No prevention.
Exactly. And we know prevention is the best
cure.
cure. We have there's also what's called the boyfriend loophole.
Right.
So if my husband beats the shit out of me and I report him and file a report and he's considered now, has committed domestic violence, he cannot get a gun.
Right.
But if my boyfriend of 37 years who lives in my home and we have 5 kids and share our bills and share a house and all the same thing, doesn't
No.
apply. It's called
Why?
the boyfriend loophole.
It's the boyfriend loophole. That's part of the reason that the
That's-
Violence Against Women Act can't
Right.
get passed, because that is in.
But wait a minute. That's saying if he's your husband, he has permission to hit you?
No.
No,
The
I'm
opposite.
confused.
If he's your husband, he doesn't have permission. So if he's your if you're convicted of domestic violence
Yes.
and you're married,
Yes.
you cannot buy a gun.
Okay. If you're not married, you can.
You can.
Correct.
Even
Got
if you've been
it.
in a
Okay.
relationship for 10, 15 years.
Even if you're, quote, common law, even
Exactly.
though that doesn't exist in a lot of states.
Yeah. So the theory, I mean, anyone convicted of domestic
Well, that's
violence
stupid.
shouldn't be able to have a
Anybody
gun.
convicted of domestic violence,
should
anyone
Exactly.
convicted of violence,
shouldn't
have a gun.
access to
even
a
if
gun.
the violence didn't involve a gun.
Exactly.
They still shouldn't be able. They're violent.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have a gun. That's why they didn't use a gun. They're still violent people.
They were waiting.
But I mean, this is large. Like these two, like the background check bill and red flag laws. These are 2 huge laws that have been passed by the House and are just sitting on McConnell's desk and will not get looked at, and because of money and because of bipartisan issues, obviously. But what our organization that we volunteer for does a lot is work on the state and local level as well. So in our school district, Moms Demand Action,
Yeah.
we were able to get safe storage gun facts sent out to all of LAUSD.
Oh, that's great.
So, small things like that can impact hundreds of people, thousands
Totally.
of people. The state of Virginia just got a, gun sense majority, a silly law that I cannot believe someone would vote against. Sorry to make it political, but to require at-home daycare centers to have any guns in that at-home daycare to be stored. People voted against that.
What?
It's hard to, if you heard if you heard
That's
some of
really
the things
stupid.
that people voted against, you'd be like, "You're
kidding.
lying."
No.
Like
it's true.
there are things like that I'll hear, and I'm like, "That's a lie. You're punking me
No,
right now."
It's
No.
real.
That's
It
crazy.
ultimately did get passed because enough. Well, I think it's passed through like tabling, and now it's moving on to. But
that's crazy.
just crazy.
So then, what is the motivation not to pass that? Like how?
It's the same thing. It's the
Money.
slippery slope. They feel like any laws are going to prevent someone's ability.
I don't know how
to
you can
buy a
see
gun.
that as a slippery slope.
I don't
know.
either.
It's a center that cares for children.
Mhm.
If you have a loaded firearm, it should definitely be locked up.
Period.
100%.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or unloaded firearm
Or
should be
unloaded,
locked up.
exactly.
And also, by the way, if anyone listening, send your child to a daycare center,
You should ask.
you should ask
Right.
if they have any guns in the daycare center, and if they are, where are they stored? How are they stored? Especially if you're in a rural state,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
may be a responsible gun owner, but that doesn't mean where
Everyone
you're
else is.
sending your children or putting your children. And little kids are curious,
Yes.
and they're climbers.
And playful.
And there's also a misconception that little kids can't pull triggers,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not true.
and that is not true.
No, that's not true. I don't believe that at all. They could drop a gun and it go off.
100%.
They misfire
They
all the
misfire
time.
all the time.
There's all different. The thing that I don't understand is why take the chance?
Mhm.
Why not err on the side of caution?
Exactly.
In-
Wear your seatbelt.
Everything in your life, yes. Wear your seatbelt. Brush your teeth twice a day. You
right?
know
Why not?
why not? What's it cost you?
Lock
It's
your front
2 minutes
door.
in the morning, 2 minutes at night to not have gum disease or
Exactly.
tooth decay or cavities or. It doesn't cost you anything, really, but 2 minutes. And the same with putting a gun in a safe. It doesn't cost you anything. You're not losing anything.
No.
You're just keeping it safe.
Mhm.
I want to know, like, what else? I like, because I do think it's so important I spend a lot of time on Twitter.
Yeah.
Talking about gun safety. And one of the things that I try super hard to do is to always be sort of reasonable.
Yeah.
And I try to listen.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are people out there that are coming at you just to be an asshole. But like for
totally.
the most part, like these are people with deep held beliefs.
Uh-huh.
Right? That feel very strongly. And I think it's important to honor that.
Totally.
And I think it's important to engage. I always like to say nobody's mind was ever changed because you were a dick.
Yeah.
No, that's very true.
Right? Like,
although on Twitter, most people think it is.
On Twitter, most people disagree.
It's hell. It's
Twitter
a cesspool
is permission to unload.
to be
Sure.
a jerk. Yes.
And that,
no, see?
Unload.
unload. Yeah. I was thinking more about the male genitalia.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
That's who I live with. It's
Right.
not a gun shooter. It's a shooter of a different kind.
There you go.
But no, yeah, it's a place to unload. It's a place to dump and to shit on people because you feel shitty about your life.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because, you know, I started working out with this trainer and he's really fucking amazing. And yesterday we were talking about how people deal with their bullshit, right? He said most people had rather embrace their bullshit and try to work with it than eliminate it.
Mm-hmm.
Because eliminating it, they think is harder work, but it's actually hard work just for the moment. And then when it's gone, you got no work. Now you got room to do other work. And I was like, that's so true. And I think with the people on Twitter, they're pulling all this bullshit out without being willing to look at their own bullshit and go,
Correct.
why is this happening? Why am I feeling so shitty that I have to attack Jenna
Right.
Yeah.
about whatever, reasonable or not? Not to discount their feelings.
Sure.
But
No. I walk
who
away all
wants
the
to-
time.
No, I walk away all
Yeah.
the time. Bert gets so upset. Like Bert posted this really cute picture of me and him when we first started dating, like the first 2 months of us dating. It was 18 years ago. And he looks amazing. He's like really thin. He's got this big bicep and he's gorgeous. And I look like me, but 20 pounds lighter and 20 years younger. And someone
Cutest
posted,
person ever.
well, I don't know, but someone posted, so Leanne's always looked 50. And Bert was so upset. And I was like, I don't give a shit what that guy said. Clearly, I have not always looked 50.
Right.
Clearly, I did not look 50 when I was 30. So, whatever. Why would you even give that 1 second of your bandwidth?
Oh,
No. You
That's
have
nothing to do with me.
I block and report constantly,
Do you?
all the time. I report
And then
people
there's me, I'm
constantly.
like, tell me more about how you're feeling. I will. I step
not
away all
worth
the
my
time,
time.
but like I know it's usually not. But like every so often, you get someone who's like, "Thanks for talking to me." No one ever talks to me.
Yeah. Well,
You
that's
know?
true. Anytime I get a negative email, I feel like posting under my Instagram picture is the same instant thing. You don't think about it, you post it, you're
No.
done. But to actually go to my website, find out how to send me an email,
That's a
sit
big
down
deal.
and compose an email. If I get a negative email, I can't think of any that I haven't addressed where I haven't gone, I am so sorry that I made you feel that way. And let me explain maybe what I was thinking,
Yeah.
or maybe I'll change my point of view because you brought up some excellent points, because I feel like if they took the time to do that, then they deserve an answer.
And that's also not on display.
Exactly. It's
That
private.
is a private
Yes.
discussion, and
Which is different.
Yeah, completely
Completely different. They
Yeah.
felt passionate enough to say, hey, this bothered
This hurt me. Yeah,
Then, okay, I completely respect that. But just saying, oh, so Leanne's always looked 50?
Right.
You've always looked like
you got problems, buddy.
I had
Big
someone-
problems.
I had someone who said some like horrible things to me, and I replied, and I was like, "I have a 9-year-old son. He has big brown eyes. He loves baseball, and he loves me more than anything in the world. I want you to imagine saying everything you just said about me
Oh,
to my 9-year-old."
wow.
And there was no reply. And like an hour later, he said, "I'm so sorry. I think I need to delete my Twitter."
Wow.
Well, there you go.
And I think that like again, by the way, I've also done that other times when they've been like, fuck your son.
Yeah.
So
People are.
I mean, people are just look, there are people out there that are just not okay.
Back to your mental health. I don't know if we ever did we really address
Well, I
the
was
mental
trying to
health?
address it with the GVRO
Got
red
it,
flag
got it,
laws,
got it, got it.
because so like in the case of the Parkland shooter, the other big thing that we do is it's called like no notoriety. So we don't ever talk about the names of the shooters. We talk about the victims. I referenced Jamie Gutenberg, and there's in the case of the Parkland shooter, there was multiple instances where they had tried to get him help. They knew he was going to do this.
The snap, yeah.
There is an incredible TED Talk about like the mind of school shooter, like the kind of, because we don't know that much about it because it's a relatively new phenomenon.
Yeah.
You know, Columbine was sort of the first time school shootings came into our world, and you know, they're coming at us with a vengeance. But we know certain things about these kids, and overwhelmingly they tell someone that they're going to do it.
Right.
In some
They
capacity.
post on social media. And then the other big thing that I haven't addressed yet that I know we both want to talk about is there's a program through Everytown called Be Smart. And it's a program for parents, and it has to do with gun storage. And so it's the S in SMART is for secure your weapons. The M is for model responsible behavior. The A is for ask, kind of what we talked about, always ask about weapons. The R is for the role that guns play in suicide. And the T is for tell, right?
Tell.
Meaning if you know someone, if your kid goes to a play date, and someone pulls out a gun, you tell.
Right.
Because that's what I've told my kids is that if you're at someone's house and they're like, hey, do you want to see my gun? You want to see my dad's gun? You want to see my mom's gun? I tell my kids, tell them you have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Good call.
Because I remember as a kid very clearly being in situations, I was a goody-goody. And sometimes it's hard to be a goody-goody.
Yeah, it is really hard to be a goody-goody.
And so I remember in situations where people were drinking or they were smoking or whatever they were doing, and I was uncomfortable. And you don't want to be like, I'm not doing that, because then you just feel weird.
Yeah.
And
you isolate yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I used to go to the bathroom.
Right.
And so I've told my kids, like, if you're ever in a situation that you're not comfortable advocating for yourself, just say you have to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Just remove yourself from the situation.
Right. And the moment usually passes.
And so,
moment will pass.
And I say, if someone does talk to you about looking at a gun or using a gun, you just say, I have to go to the bathroom. And then you go find a grown up.
Yeah. That's really good way that's really good advice for
like
almost
that. Yeah.
anything.
Right?
Yeah, for almost anything, not just guns.
Yeah.
For drinking,
Anything.
for
Wanna
drugs, for
drag off my cigarette, or
knives.
kids don't smoke anymore, do they? They only
Right.
vape, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm kidding.
But
Totally.
do still smoke cigarettes, though?
Kids,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think
They
it's
just
all
vape,
vaping
right?
now. Yeah.
they vape.
This vaping thing is
Crazy.
It's insane.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to
Wait,
venture off
Can I
into
tell
another.
a story?
But the telling is
Tell a story. I love stories.
Go for it.
You guys, I'm not a pot. I'm totally digressing, but this is a kind of funny story.
I love digressions. This is
So,
how a
have
real
you heard
conversation
this
works.
about
think so.
Oliver?
No.
Rich, don't watch this. He's probably gonna be like, "Why are you telling this?" But it's a really fucking story. So I'm not a pot smoker.
Right.
I'm nothing against it. It's just like
It's not for you.
I don't love how it makes me feel, to be honest.
Right.
And the only thing I like is I like edibles,
Right.
but I like them when they're like mostly CBD.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going away on a girls' trip, and I was like, you know what? Pot is legal. I can like go into a pot store
Just
and buy pot.
Totally.
And I was at one of those like massage places, and it was right next to a place on Ventura. And I was like,
dispensary is the term.
thank you, not pot
a
place.
pot place. Yeah.
I'm so down with lingo. So just the point of the
My
the
dealer
point of the
was right
backstory-
next door.
So the point of the backstory is I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Go in and I buy it, and it's literally like one that's like It's like 99% CBD and like 1% THC.
THC, yes.
And put it in my bag, my purse. It's in like a little white bag.
Oh.
And I don't think about it again because I am not a person who buys pot.
Yeah. Right.
And it literally didn't. So I go to pick up my daughter at school. I have my son in the car. I go to pick up my daughter at school. And I get out of the car because I like can't find her. So I'm like, and I come back in and my 9-year-old is sitting in the back seat with tears streaming down his face.
Oh no.
And I'm like, what's wrong? And he's like, nothing. I'm like, what's wrong? Nothing. He's like, nothing. He's like, something outside scared me. But now I'm not scared anymore. And I was like, what? This is weird. And I'm like pushing him, but I've got like my daughter and the carpool kids and I have to get out of the freaking school parking lot. And he seems to be, and I'm like, well, I'm sorry, whatever scared you. So I go and he goes to play at someone's house and the mom calls me and she's like, he wants to go home. And I'm like, what do you mean he wants to go home? She's like, I don't know. He's being really weird. He wants to go home. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, is he sick? So I go and I pick him up and I get in the car and I'm like, Oliver, I'm like, are you okay? And he starts bursting tears. He goes, you're a drug addict?
A drug addict.
And I go, what? He goes, I didn't want to tell you. I've been so scared. But I know that you're a drug addict.
Oh my God.
And I was like,
hysterical.
I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I found it in your purse. So I'm like, oh. And now all I can think of is I'm like, I am not fucking. So, okay. So we have this whole conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's CBD and it's like not drugs. I'm like, and even if it was, it's legal. I'm like, and I'm an adult. And like, but I'm now uncomfortable, which I'm never uncomfortable talking to my kids. But again, like, this is not something I've like thought about. This was,
we weren't raised this way. We were raised
and I was
that
just
pot
so,
was awful.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to be like, it's not a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
it's whatever. So I'm like, you know, and I even honestly don't remember what I said. So, okay, cut to, we keep going. I have a very close family friend who owns a huge cannabis business.
Mhm.
Okay. Several years ago, he gave me like a bag of a ton of stuff, vape pens, all sorts of shit that I put in like a, you know, you get those free makeup bags.
Yeah.
When you buy, I like threw it all in there and put it in a drawer. Literally haven't thought about it in years. Okay.
Right.
So now we're on the heels of what I like to call Gummy Gate. Okay. I've now worked everything through. Everything is fine with Oliver. We're okay. This is like 2 days later.
Right.
Zoe decides, Zoe's my older daughter, decides, and Zoe knows everything that's happening. And I've now explained, you guys know where this is going. And I've now explained to my kids how I don't do drugs and I'm not, Zoe is now looking for a bag. She needs it for her dance class to put something in. And she sees a makeup bag in my drawer. And she opens it. And you guys, it's full of like
Paraphernalia.
vape pens.
All of
And
it.
like, I don't
All
even
of
know.
it.
And instead of talking to me, she texts my husband.
Oh God.
And she's like, and like has photos of everything.
Oh,
this was all
my
mom's.
God.
I'm scared of her.
Oh my
I'm
God.
terrified. And I'm like,
That's funny.
so I have to now deal with this. And all I can think of is, I don't even fucking
You don't even
use
smoke. Yeah.
marijuana.
Oh, that's really funny.
So here I am. I'm a drug addict.
a drug addict.
But this, I think, is actually pulling it back to guns. Like, people leave their loaded gun in their purse in their car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
So true.
and if your son had not been devastated that you were a drug addict
Mhm.
and instead was like cool gummies and
And
started
eating
eating
them.
them all,
Exactly.
you would have gone to jail.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
However, a mom that leaves her loaded gun in the car and the kid shoots her in the shoulder doesn't go to jail.
That's
So
fun fact.
Is that true?
You're not
Yes,
responsible.
you are not responsible. So where's the logic in that? Sorry.
Wait, why are you not responsible? Because the child pulled the trigger?
Correct.
Yeah.
So this the child's responsibility, and because they're a child, they're not responsible.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
There's
ridiculous.
certain, the laws are starting, some of the state laws are starting to change. Actually, I think I remember hearing the guy that I was talking about earlier, and I think it was New Jersey.
Did he go?
He got arrested, but it was like for
child endangerment, not
else.
Yeah, but it would be child endangerment, right? You've got a weapon sitting there that a child can kill themselves or someone else, and you should be responsible for that.
Yeah, totally.
Well, the big push, like in my personal opinion, is if I leave a weapon unsecured in my home and a child uses it to harm another child, I should be responsible.
I agree with that.
For that.
I agree with
But
that.
I'm not.
That seems very wrong also.
Yeah.
Is that another thing that the NRA is saying you cannot pass a law?
Any gun thing
Law.
is the NRA. The NRA is one of the strongest lobbying arms in the country.
But why? If
Well,
they're
they changed
losing membership and they're losing money and their public persona is going down, why are they so powerful?
Well,
So they're much less powerful than they used to be. So it used to be that like having the you needed the backing of the NRA to win an election,
right.
And now it's
Now
the
it's
opposite,
the opposite.
where
exactly.
where a
I
lot
don't know
of
if it's the opposite because who won the last election? Mr. Trump. Did
Well,
he
but
not
that's
have
different.
Yeah, but I'm saying like the House flipped to a gun sense majority, and people are now proud to wear their
Right.
F rating.
So that's
from
like a
the
big
NRA.
thing is that the NRA. So here you explain.
Yeah, the NRA gives a
Interesting.
rating to a candidate, and an A is obviously someone that they like and who does not believe that there should be any gun sense laws, etc. So they give an F to someone who believes that we should have background checks and we should have logical laws. And so people used to be terrified of that F, and now they're proud to wear it.
Right,
They like
right.
they
So,
get like pins
they get a
and
pin,
they wear
yeah.
it like with big F's on them and and now even if you like it used to be for even for I mean I don't like to make it partisan, but even for someone running that would be running in an area where there are a lot of gun owners, it used to be like that would be like your big thing, like NRA supported,
yeah.
NRA, and they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
So things are changing, no question. And
there's a shift, and it's a positive shift.
and it's a positive
It's
shift,
a
and
safety shift.
and it's been in the last probably 5 years, honestly. And so it's been slow, but it's happening. And I mean, last night at the debate, every single person on that stage is someone that believes in gun sense candidate. Is a gun
Right.
sense
This
candidate.
is the first election we've ever had where gun safety has been a major issue,
Right.
And has been. It's usually considered like a taboo topic. Like
Right.
Nobody talks about guns.
now. Well,
Right?
they didn't bring it up last night, unfortunately.
Last night they didn't, but they have in the past, and it's a big part of everyone's platforms. And even if you like read like questionnaires and stuff like that, it's always included now, and that was never the case.
Right.
People are just speaking a lot more openly about it. Again, like it was this like taboo thing, like kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like, and I think that it's part of us as everyday people to make it not taboo.
Right.
To make it something that it's okay to talk about, just like you would ask if somebody has a pool or a big dog.
Right.
Speaking of the big dogs, this reminds me of what I was going to say. Your dogs
Yeah.
are a much better deterrent.
100%.
Oh,
Yep.
dogs
Than a
are
gun.
significantly.
Number one.
Dogs
Yeah.
are the number one. You know, Rich and I are always, our dog barks
Yeah.
when there's,
anything.
and it drives him crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Thank God.
and I'm always like, good boy.
Right.
You just keep barking.
Yeah.
That's why we got Priscilla. When we first moved here, before we lived here, I managed apartment buildings. So I called my locksmith, who had been my locksmith for 10 years because constantly changing locks. And he actually is a work friend more than just a work kind of colleague. He's someone I really trusted and enjoyed. And when he came to change the locks here, when we moved in, I said, what's the number one thing we can do for security? And he went, get a big dog.
Yeah.
Because we just had Mona, who's the 13-pound. And Bert heard it and went, that's it. Get
Right?
a big
Get a
dog.
big dog.
Big dog on the way.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
much
Bird
bigger
is the
deterrent.
king of the impulse, right?
The king of the impulse. But, it took us 13 months. Well, no, not quite that long. It took us, let's see, we moved in January. We didn't get her till September. So I was like, I don't want that big of a dog. I think a dog that sounds big
Sounds-
would be
Which
the
is what I laugh
same.
about Bo.
But you have large. Yeah, your dog
Yes.
is tiny. Well,
Our dogs, that's why I keep saying, if someone comes in my house with that dog,
Yeah.
they're stupid.
They're stupid, yeah.
Because
Same
that
with
dog
mine.
will eat you.
Right.
Yeah.
Priscilla is very nice, but man, the gardener who's been coming here for 9 years, she don't like him.
Yeah.
Nope.
And she chases him out of the yard if I'm not here. If I'm here, she's totally fine.
Yeah.
But good luck if you come in my yard with that dog.
Mm-hmm.
Izzy is yet to be determined. Izzy may be dumb, but Priscilla
Priscilla is here for the fight.
Priscilla knows what's up.
Bo is. I would not fuck with my dog in a dark alley. I mean, he is. You know, Oliver used to ride him around like a pony,
Aw.
and wouldn't hurt a fly. But
If someone came after you guys,
yeah, he's gonna keep you safe.
and what's fascinating to me about dogs is how they like know. Like Rich can come home from work in the middle of the night, and my dog doesn't budge.
Yeah,
but my
yeah.
brother was staying at our house, and he like came in late from the airport. I thought Bo was I texted Rich and I was like, so now I know what would happen if someone tried to get in our house.
That's good, right?
Because I'd given him a key, but like our door is weird, so he was like rattling it around.
Yeah,
He just zoomed down the stairs. And I was like, well, my brother was like,
That's great. But that is true.
I was like, don't come in.
It's so much more, one more thing I want to talk about gun safety,
Yeah.
right? I think we do not live in the urban community.
No.
I read a book recently. I've talked about it 5 million times. I'm sorry. But I read Miss Pat's autobiography. Miss Pat is an African-American woman who was raised in urban Atlanta and raised in, or you would probably really, both of you.
Miss Pat?
I can't tell. I've told
What's the name of the book?
Rabbit. Her nickname growing up was
Okay.
Rabbit, the autobiography.
Well, I know
of Miss
you also
Pat.
were talking about
It's on my
Educated,
website.
right?
Educated is great.
Yeah, I love Educated.
I learned more
Okay.
about urban culture and life from that Miss Pat's autobiography, so much so that I was ashamed of myself. As soon as I finished her book, I felt ashamed that I did not understand what goes on in her community.
Oh,
Even though you hear it, I didn't understand it until I read her book. And I was very embarrassed and ashamed of myself for not. I mean, I don't know how I would know. I don't live in her community.
right.
I am not African American. I was born
it's-
white. There's nothing
It's
I
our
do
job
about
to
it.
learn it, though.
But
We
it
need-
is
No question.
To be allies. To
Yeah.
to
listen.
be
100%.
allies. And I wonder what you do in that community for gun safety, because what do you do in that community? Because that's in some ways how urban people communicate with each other.
Right.
It's a completely different deal than what happens outside of that community, I think.
There's, primarily it's intervention. And there's, in the state of California last year, we were able to get $39 million for gun violence prevention organizations that
That's
work
great.
directly in these communities.
Yeah.
And everything from if there was a shooting in a community, volunteers go to the hospital and sit down at the bedside with someone that was shot and thank God survived. And instead of getting them to feel their anger, they get them to cry. They feel the vulnerability. They talk to them about how another shooting will not balance anything.
Right.
So
To
it's
avoid
it's-
retaliation.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's basically working within the community. Now, a white middle class lady cannot go in and do that.
Of course
and
not.
I'm not going to. I can support it in every way that I can, either financially or emotionally, or help with these
Advocating
organization
for it.
advocacy. Exactly.
Educating,
But
yeah.
educating it. But it is these communities themselves that are helping to stop this violence.
And I think you're right. I think it has to come from within the community because I would imagine if I walked into their community, they would be like, "What the fuck do you know?
Yeah, what do you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
You don't know
You
anything."
walked in-
Because how could I? How would I
Exactly.
even assume to know anything? Even though I grew up not privileged and white trash in some ways and redneck and hillbilly, I don't know what it's like to grow up.
You're
and
still white.
Yeah,
I'm still
you're
white. At
Still
the
white.
end of
And
the
that
day,
is
I am
always-
privileged because of my birth.
Yeah.
And that
that's
is
it.
always, I always tell my kids that being born white, no matter how you were born, rich, poor, living in rural areas, living in urban community, wherever it is, just by being white, you start out steps ahead.
Steps
You
ahead.
do, absolutely. It's absolutely true.
The-
And I don't know that a lot of white people who are not who are less privileged feel that way. But I think it is absolutely true.
No question.
100% true. If you are white, you are steps ahead.
Yeah.
Just from your skin color. But so education from inside the community.
No question. Also working on the laws around, states like that surround Chicago, like preventing these guns from coming into the community.
Right.
It's huge. So, working on federal laws.
So gun violence is the number 2 cause of death for children right now after motor vehicles. And that's recent that it became number 2. But for Black children, it's the number 1 cause of death.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's, again, like the work that these communities are doing in-house is so inspiring.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest thing that we can do as white people, right, is instead of and one of the big things like we focus on in our group is not it's about what can we do to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
how can we fix it?
How can we fix it?
Right, right.
How can I help you? You tell me. We have a friend of ours in the organization whose son was killed and murdered. And we showed up on the anniversary of his death and passed out flyers in the area to hope that somebody would come forward. No one has come forward.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do, right? Is we show up. You
tell us what you need, and we will support that in any way we can.
You know what's hard after reading Miss Pat's book? I don't think that a lot of people, Black or white, know what they need. I don't think they know. I don't think they can articulate it, or maybe the need is so great that it can't be expressed. I felt very much that way. I felt defeated after I read her book. I felt overwhelmed by the fingers of issues
that
needed to be handled. Like it was almost, it was so all encompassing that I felt defeated and embarrassed and ashamed
but I think we should.
You should ask the question. I'm not saying the question shouldn't be asked, but I wonder if talking about working with people in their community who are the people who have to make the change. How do you help them figure out
that? Well, okay. So at
question.
Christmas time, we worked with the same woman, Nicole. She's amazing. She's a survivor. Instead of cowering, she has become empowered and is working with Moms Demand Action as a survivor. One day at Christmas, instead of just throwing how do I explain this? We went down and helped her as just resources, financial and bodies, to give a day of joy to 50 kids who had either lost a parent or a sibling to gun violence.
Wow.
Or sometimes both parents.
Right.
So, we got $2,000 in gift cards donated to Ralph's and to grocery stores. We got tons of toys. We got, inflatables, and we brought crafts and stuff. And, we don't see this on a daily basis. We don't experience what they, not just the loss of a parent, but walking to this place where this event happened.
Right.
How much violence has happened in those few blocks.
Yeah.
Or, we had to have it at a certain time because they have to take the bus to get there, and it's not safe for them to do it after a certain hour.
Totally.
So we can't go in. Those are things that I'm not going to think about.
Right.
So I listen and say, oh, you're right. Okay, we have to have it at this time. We all have to suck it up and be there earlier. We have, you have to, I can't go in and fix it.
Right.
But I can support in any way that I can.
Right.
We have to give people a seat at the table.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's really hard for white people to do.
Yeah.
It is hard for white people to do. And I think a seat at the table is a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
I think a willingness for the table to embrace a point of view that's not their own.
Yeah.
To have
to have empathy.
To have empathy.
Yeah,
That book, I swear to God, you should read it.
I'm
I'm gonna
grab
go get
it.
it.
It's on my
Grab it.
website,
Okay.
yfotp.com. If you want, it's in the food for thought tab. There's a link that'll send you straight to Amazon if you want to buy it through Amazon, or you can get it at the library.
Barnes and Nobles, or go to the
Barnes and
library.
Nobles, you go to the library.
Download it to my Kindle.
Her audiobook also, Miss Pat reads it.
Okay.
And what was great about her book is she wrote it like she was telling you facts, not like she doesn't blame anybody for anything that happened to her or that happened because of her. There's no blame in that book. It was a really amazing depiction of life from her earliest memory to present day and what she had to go through just to get in like regular society, just to be a functioning part of our society. She had to be a criminal,
Right?
and you just go, you shouldn't have to. You think about
shouldn't have to.
Jay-Z had to be a criminal to get into normal society.
Yep.
Biggie had to be a criminal to get in normal society. There's so many people that come from difficult backgrounds like that have to do bad things to get to good, and that's so bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
It should
It's
not
not okay.
be that way.
Exactly.
It's just so bad.
The city gun. There's a huge component of our group that's devoted to city. We call it city gun violence, and that's sort of become like a huge
big
focus
push,
for us.
yeah.
This concept that we call DEI goals, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's actually a great image of there's like a fence, and there's like a tall boy, and he's standing like this, and then there's
It's 3 different size people,
right.
and then
So one boy can see over the fence.
one has a hole.
Some people are just listening.
And then one is the hole's lower, and they say, well, they're all getting access. They can all see what's happening, but they're all starting from somewhere different,
Totally different.
So if you give them each a
Different
box
size stool to stand on.
to each have their head over the fence, so they
Right.
can take it all in,
Right.
they've all started
At the
from
same
the same
place.
place.
That's
Right.
what equity is, right?
Right.
Equity is
Yeah.
giving people what they need so that they're starting at the same place.
Right.
Right? You know, I mean, the example I was giving my daughter is, you know, like because of the things you were born into, things you had no control over, right? You're going to have these pushes in life
Yeah.
that other people aren't going to have. And that trickles through your entire life, right?
Sure.
You might get picked for an internship over someone else. And then because of that internship, you'll get a job that person now won't get.
Right.
And that person's still looking for the intern. You know, there's all these factors that go into everything.
Yeah, or just me kissing my kid goodbye in the morning and knowing that because he's a white kid, he can put his hoodie on and walk to school
Right.
and not be questioned why he's in our neighborhood.
Right.
But, you know, my friend down the street whose kid is black or Muslim and darker skin, if he puts a hoodie on.
Now he's suspicious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, just,
It's a crazy place we live.
it is.
We live in a hard time. And I think that we didn't grow up in a hard time.
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
And it's so our kids are all being raised, not all, but like for a lot of our kids, they're being raised in a very different way than we were.
Yeah.
Because my kids are being raised going to marches and rallies and listening to their mom do podcasts and talk about gun violence. And I didn't have any of that.
No, right.
It was, whereas our parents who grew up in the civil rights movement, they
Almost sheltered us from it later, you know?
well, and that's part of it. Like I wonder how much, I mean, I hope for our kids, if there's still a world, that that it will become cyclical again for their kids, where they will have this sort of easy breezy life.
But it wasn't easy breezy for a lot of people.
I mean, politically.
Politically.
In
okay,
terms of these like times
Disruptive
of
times.
disruption and turmoil.
Well, life is all about equilibrium, disequilibrium. You shift in and out of equilibrium and into disequilibrium, and that's kind of a natural progression of the way life works. We're just in a moment of disequilibrium.
Completely.
And so how you handle that and how you parent through that, I think matters because it'll come
question.
back. There's disequilibrium constantly. Well, not constantly because then it wouldn't be a cycle, but it continues to return.
Exactly.
And it will never go away. You know, even when you're working on your own mental health or your own physical health,
Sure.
you'll have times where you're strong and you're working out all the time, and then all of a sudden
You get
You
sick.
get an ear infection and your trainer gets the flu and you can't be around.
and it takes you 6 months to get back on track.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's the way life works. And
Yep.
I guess maybe that's the message for your kids, for our kids, is that this too shall pass and it shall return.
It shall return, exactly.
How do we handle it?
I
is
used to
all that
in the
matters.
I used to truly be jealous that I did not grow up in the civil rights movement. Like when I was in
Oh,
high
really?
school, I pined, and now I'm like, look what I wished for.
Right?
Here we
Here
are
I am.
again. You know? So, but I think, in times like this, it tells what kind of person you are and how you respond to the world and to this disequilibrium,
Right.
Yeah.
I like to wear shirts all the time that are like statement
Yeah,
shirts.
me too.
And one of my favorite ones says, "We are the ones we've been waiting for."
Nice.
And I think I try to I think that if you can remember that, no one's coming to save you.
Yeah. We are the ones we're waiting
we
for.
gotta
We
do
are
it.
the ones
We
we've
gotta
been
do it.
waiting for.
That's awesome.
So.
My favorite shirt is "Too old to die young."
There you go. There you go.
Just kidding. Thank you, Halston.
You laughed a little too hard at that one.
I wear it to work out all the time, and my trainer always shakes his head. He's like, "That's a pretty good shirt. That's a
Right?
pretty good shirt."
It's a
I'm like,
pretty
"I am
funny one.
50 this year. I am too old to die young." Whatever.
Yeah.
But we are the ones we're waiting for. That's great. That's great. Okay, so let's wrap up what we learned.
Let's do it.
What did we learn? We learned to lock your shit up.
Lock your shit
Lock
up.
your shit up.
Lock it up.
Separate them. So your ammunition and guns need to be locked up separately.
Right.
Ask before
Ask.
you go into someone's home.
Yeah.
Or anywhere your kids are going to be.
During the holidays, it's a big time. You're
Yes,
going to
hol-
visit
yeah, going to visit
grandparents'
Uncle
house.
Fred and
yeah.
Divulge,
Yeah.
then ask is a good path that you took. Hey, this is what goes on at my house.
What about
What
yours?
goes on at your house?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a great way.
Mhm.
Talk to your kids about how to handle it
Yep.
when, if it ever comes up for them to handle it appropriately. Find an adult. Say, "I got to go to the bathroom" is a
Yeah.
good method. I'm sure you could come up with lots of other good methods. But I think, as with sex, drugs, money, all these hot topic issues, talking.
to your kids.
talk,
to your
communication.
kids.
And not just your kids, but your family.
Yeah.
Yes.
You and your spouse, your partner, your parents, whatever. Know that if someone in your family is struggling with depression, that access to a firearm can mean the difference between a bad day and a worse day.
Totally.
Aging parents, that's a big one.
Yes.
Starting to have dementia, things like that. So
Yes.
if guns are in the home, knowing that you can
you
use
have-
those red flag laws to
And
get
have
it
the guns
ta-
taken
to
away.
get it
Dementia
taken out.
is
I have that experience in my family of dementia and wife shooting a husband because she thought he was an intruder.
Right. Exactly.
And he was not.
Yeah.
And he was just injured. He was not
Thank God.
mortally injured.
Yeah.
But it's shocking when that happens. You would never think that would happen.
No.
You know, but she really
does.
thought he was an intruder.
of course.
And they've been together 75 years. And the brain does crazy things, doesn't
Yes,
it?
it does.
Yeah. If you have elderly parents that are starting to show
I'm glad
signs
you
of
brought that up
dementia.
because we hadn't talked about that.
Yep.
And I hadn't
Thought about it.
like you said, survivors go, "Oh,
Right.
I didn't
I didn't
realize."
realize I'm a survivor.
I don't know that I would call myself a survivor, but that definitely happened in my family.
You've been impacted by
Oh,
gun
totally.
violence.
And it's
I've been
like I said,
impacted
No
by
question. Yeah.
by suicide.
Yeah.
You know, I think
I think
it's so tragic.
so many people have.
I keep meaning to do an episode about suicide, and I don't know who to talk to about it. It's not, no one flies there. I have suicide in my family flag, so to know who has that experience or family friend, whatever, is hard. But I've been meaning to talk about that because it's very difficult and very strange thing to process. you
And
know.
rising tremendously right
Yeah,
now.
and rising. Yeah, scary. Okay, so we got off our wrapping
Yeah,
up.
start.
Lock it up separately. Talk to your kids. Consider when someone's having mental health issues in your home. And mental health issues, what's so crazy is mental health issues doesn't mean you're walking around talking to yourself.
No.
It means
depression is a mental health issue.
Exactly.
Severe anxiety. I mean, all
it's
of these
severe
things.
anxiety.
Exactly.
Yes, it's that someone is off.
Also, remember, somebody
a
with
big
mental
way.
health issues are way more likely to hurt themselves than
Than someone else.
100%.
Yeah.
Way more likely.
And they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
They don't know what they're doing. So I mean, my uncle's schizophrenic, and he used to constantly talk about killing his dad.
Yeah.
And I would call his mother and my grandmother and say, "Have you guys taken away his guns?
Yeah.
Like, you should probably take them. I mean, he is diagnosed schizophrenic. Maybe you should take his guns and his knives just to be safe."
Yeah.
They never did, and I thought that was insane.
Our friend.
Now, he didn't hurt anybody.
Schizophrenic brother
crazy.
killed himself.
Yeah.
And you just go, why wouldn't you just go, can you go to the store, get me some milk, and just go take them
And
all
take
out of
them.
the house?
Yeah.
And do like I did. I hid the gun from Bert because he did not need that
This
thing.
is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah,
Bert.
exactly.
This is why, yes, Bert Kreischer.
So
Don't be a Bert Kreischer. That's the lesson.
I think the key is just be safe.
Be smart.
If you are wanting to get involved with gun safety, we are always looking for people. This is not a political organization. We are not a Democratic group. We are completely nonpartisan. We have Republicans in our group. We have Democrats in our group. We have independents in our group.
What's the name of your group again?
Moms Demand Action.
Can dads join it?
oh yeah.
And we call them Mothers and Others.
Mothers and others.
We have moms,
have
dads,
uncles,
friends,
aunts.
uncles.
Dog moms.
momsdemandaction.org.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And there's and if anybody wants to email Leanne can always get in touch with me.
Yep.
And I can help you find your local group.
Yep. wifeotp.com.
Yep.
And my email is there.
And we just
enough.
we are the ones we've been waiting for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we gotta,
And we are too old to die young.
and we are too old to die. So
We are the ones we've been waiting for. Well, thank you for sharing all this.
Thanks for having
I
us.
really appreciate it, especially the data. I think data changes minds.
Yeah.
I think when you hear some hard data, you go, okay,
Oh,
things have got to change.
Something.
Because you don't think it doesn't happen to me.
Mhm.
Not in my neighborhood.
if anybody
You know.
wants more data, if you Google every town gun violence statistics, something like that, it'll lead you to their website, which will give you all of the data you could ever want.
Okay. That's great. Data is amazing.
Yep.
So
Facts are facts.
what you can't change anything until you know.
Until you know.
So thanks for helping me know.
Of course.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Of course.